My name is Lauren Hayes and I am 32 years old, and on a Saturday morning in June, while I was plating duck confit for a private event at a waterfront estate, I got a text from my sister that made me set down my knife and laugh out loud, because after 8 years of cooking for free at every single family gathering, she had finally sent me the message I had been waiting for that said, "We hired someone else. Hope you understand. It's just food. You were asking too much." I saved that text, because I knew exactly how this was going to end, and I was right. But let me take you back, because you need to understand how a family convinces themselves that a professionally trained chef who works 80-hour weeks is being unreasonable for charging them anything at all. I grew up in a house where my father managed a hardware store, and my mother worked part-time at a dental office, and my older sister Emma was the kind of child who got straight A's without trying, and I was the kind of child who got sent home from school with paint in my hair. Emma went to business school and married a finance guy named Todd who wore a watch that cost more than my first car, and I went to culinary school on loans I'm still paying off, and spent 3 years working under a chef in New York who once threw a sauté pan at my head because I oversalted a beurre blanc. I learned to cook in kitchens where if you were 30 seconds late with a plate you didn't get a second chance, and if you couldn't take the heat you got out literally, and that training made me fast and precise, and completely unwilling to accept mediocrity from myself or anyone else on my line. By the time I was 28, I had saved enough to open my own catering company, and I started small, doing birthday parties and corporate lunches, and working 16-hour days out of a rented commercial kitchen space that smelled like bleach and old fryer oil. My parents thought it was adorable, like I was playing restaurant, and my sister told people I did events, in the same tone you'd say someone does MLM skincare. But I kept my head down, and I kept cooking, and slowly, very slowly, my client list started to change. I got hired to do a retirement party for a law firm partner, and one of the guests was a venue coordinator who liked my short rib, and she referred me to a country club, and the country club referred me to a corporate client, and within 2 years, I was booking weddings 8 months out and charging rates that made my younger self want to cry. My menu pricing started at $28,000 for 150 guests, and that included past hors d'oeuvres during cocktail hour, a 4-course plated dinner with wine pairings and a dessert service that I personally designed for each couple, and I was booked solid, because I was good, really good, and my clients knew it. But my family had no idea, because every time they needed catering for a birthday, a reunion, an anniversary, a holiday, I showed up with trays of food I had spent 2 days prepping, and I charged them nothing, not once, not ever. I did my cousin's wedding for 120 people, and brought everything from appetizers to cake, and when my aunt tried to tip me $200, I waved it off. I catered my parents' 30th anniversary party, and my mother's retirement lunch, and my sister's baby shower, and every single time, I absorbed the cost of ingredients, labor, rentals, and my own time, because they were family, and that's what you do, right? You show up for the people you love even when they don't quite see what you're doing as real work. Then in March my sister called and said she and Todd were renewing their vows. It had been 10 years and they wanted to do it big, 300 guests, sit-down dinner, outdoor venue, the whole thing, and before she even asked I knew what was coming. She said, "Obviously you'll do the food," and I paused for a long time before I said, "Emma, this is a 300-person event. I need to bring in my full team, rent equipment, coordinate with the venue. I can do it, but I need to charge you." She laughed, actually laughed like I had made a joke, and said, "Charge us, Lauren, it's family." I said, "I know, and I'm giving you my absolute lowest rate, $15,000 for 300 guests, and that includes everything: appetizers, entries, sides, dessert, rental, staff, the works. This is less than half what I charge my regular clients." The line went quiet, and then she said, $15,000, are you serious right now? I said, "Completely serious, Emma. I've been doing this professionally for 4 years. This is my business. I have overhead and staff to pay, and I'm already cutting you a massive discount." She said, "I need to talk to Todd," and hung up. 2 days later, my mother called and used her disappointed voice, the one that made me feel like I was 12 again, and had just brought home a bad report card, and she said your sister is very hurt, Lauren. She thought you'd want to do this for her. I said I do want to do it, Mom. But I also need to pay my team and cover my costs. I'm running a business, not a hobby. She said it's just food, Lauren, you're making it sound like you're some kind of celebrity chef. That sentence sat in my chest like a stone. Just food. As if the 60-hour weeks, the burns on my forearms, the years of training and the small business I had built from nothing were all just a cute little side project I did for fun. I said, Mom, I'm offering her a rate that's 50% off what I charge everyone else. If she doesn't want to pay it, she's welcome to hire someone else. My mother said you're being greedy and hung up. My father didn't call, but he sent a text that said very disappointed in you and nothing else. My sister sent a long message about how she had always supported me and thought I'd be happy to do this for her big day, and how she couldn't believe I was nickel and diming family, and she ended it with, we'll find someone who actually cares. I sat in my kitchen that night with a glass of wine, and I didn't cry, I didn't feel guilty, I just felt tired of being treated like my work didn't count, because I wasn't sitting in an office wearing a blazer. 3 weeks later, my sister posted in the family group chat that she'd hired a catering company called Prestige Events, and they were doing the whole wedding for $8,000, and wasn't that amazing? Such a good deal. I didn't respond, but I looked up Prestige Events and found a company with a bare bones website, stock photos, and exactly 3 online reviews, 2 of which mentioned cold food and the third mentioned food poisoning. I screenshot the reviews and saved them in a folder on my phone that I titled Told You So. The day before the wedding, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize, and when I answered, a panicked male voice said, "Is this Lauren Hayes, the caterer? This is Doug from Prestige Events. I'm calling about the Miller wedding tomorrow." My stomach dropped and I said, "Yes, what's wrong?" He said in the most unprofessional voice I'd ever heard from a vendor, "Look, I'm gonna level with you. We just got offered a corporate gig tomorrow that's paying us double what your sister's paying, so we're pulling out of her event." I said, "You're canceling the day before a 300-person wedding," and he said, "Yeah, sorry, it's just business," and hung up. I sat there for 10 seconds staring at my phone, and then I called my sister, and when she picked up, I could already hear the panic in her voice. She said, "Lauren, did you hear?" And I said, "I just got a call from Doug." "Yeah." She said in a voice that was trying very hard not to completely break, "Can you do it? Please, I know I said things, but please, we'll pay you." I said, "I can do it, Emma, but my rate is $15,000 and I need half up front tonight." She said, "Tonight, Lauren, that's not fair. We're family, you know, we're desperate." I said, "I know, and I also know that you called my work just food and accused me of being greedy, so if you want me to pull off a 300-person event with less than 24 hours notice, you're going to pay my rate and respect my profession." She hung up and I assumed that was that, but 20 minutes later, I got a Venmo request accepted notification for $7,500 and a text that just said, "Please." I called my entire team, offered them double overtime pay, and we worked through the night prepping proteins, blanching vegetables, baking rolls, making sauces, and by 5 the next morning we were loading trucks headed to the venue with everything we needed to feed 300 people food that would actually be good. The wedding went off flawlessly, because I don't do things halfway. We served seared scallops with corn puree for the appetizer, choice of fillet or sea bass for the main, and a dessert course that had 3 separate components, including a honey lavender panna cotta that people were still talking about at the end of the night. I stayed in the kitchen the whole time, coordinating my team, plating dishes, managing timing, and I didn't go out to the reception once, because I wasn't there as a guest, I was there as the chef they had hired. At the end of the night, when we were packing up, the venue manager came into the kitchen and said, "Lauren, that was exceptional, as always," and I said, "Thanks, Rebecca, I appreciate it." She said, "I have to tell you something," and she looked uncomfortable. "Earlier tonight, Emma's mother-in-law was complaining to me about how expensive you were, and I didn't realize she was talking about you until she said your name." I stayed quiet and Rebecca continued. She said you charged them $15,000 and that it was outrageous for just catering, and I said, "Rebecca, what did you say?" Rebecca smiled and said I told her that Lauren Hayes is one of the top private chefs in the region, that we recommend her for all our premium events, and that her starting rate, for most clients, is $28,000 minimum, and that if Emma had paid $15,000, she got the deal of a lifetime. I started laughing, I couldn't help it, and I said what did she say, and Rebecca said she went completely white and walked away. The next morning my mother called and said in a very small voice, Rebecca told me what you normally charge. And I didn't say anything, I just let her sit in the silence, until she said I didn't know Lauren, I thought you were just doing parties. I said Mom, I've been doing this professionally for 4 years, I've cooked for corporate executives for weddings at venues you couldn't afford to rent for private clients, who pay me more in one night than Dad made in a month at the hardware store. And not once, not one single time, did any of you ask me what my actual career looked like. You just assumed it was a hobby, because it didn't look like Emma's job. She said we're proud of you, and I said you're proud now that someone else told you I was worth being proud of. My sister didn't call, but she sent a text 3 days later that said thank you for saving the wedding, the food was perfect. I didn't respond. I don't work for free anymore, not for anyone. And when my cousin asked me last month if I'd cater her baby shower, I sent her my standard pricing sheet, and she hired me without blinking, because she actually respected what I do. My parents came to an event I catered 2 months ago, some charity gala, at a museum, and I watched from the kitchen doorway, as my father told someone at his table that his daughter was the chef tonight, and the pride in his voice was real, but it came 10 years too late. I'm not angry anymore, I'm just clear. Clear about my worth, clear about my boundaries, and clear about the fact that loving someone doesn't mean letting them devalue you. If you've ever had family treat your work like it doesn't count, because it doesn't fit their definition of success, I need you to hear this. Your work matters, whether they see it or not, and the day you stop waiting for their approval is the day you actually start building something they can't take credit for.